Happy Tuesday. I hope you guys are all having a great start to the week. I'm going to throw you guys a little bit of a curveball today and cover something that we haven't spent a lot of time on, which is the other half of the transaction and buyers. So there's a couple ways and a couple things that we need to make sure that we're doing to ensure that we're working buyers as efficiently as possible. So we're going to be touching on those today. So the first thing that we need to make sure that we're doing is we should be treating our buyers just like we do our sellers. And so what I mean by that is we need to be setting a buyer consultation appointment before we do anything else. So before we show them a home, before we do anything, have them come into the office and meet you, or have them meet you at a coffee shop, just somewhere neutral. But first things first, set a buyer consultation appointment. So what are we going to cover at this buyer consultation appointment? One of the first things that we're going to cover, which all of us are guilty of, including myself, is the buyer agency agreement. So we need to make sure we get that buyer agency agreement signed before we do anything else. We want to ensure that that buyer is going to commit to us before we drive them all around town and waste time. So number one, buyer agency agreement, contract signed. Make sure we get that signed. Next would be the pre-qualification process. So I like to offer out 2 lenders just because if they go with the lender that I suggest and it doesn't go well, whose fault of it is it? Of course, it's ours, right? So I always like to offer out 2 lenders so that way the buyer can contact both and decide which one they want to work with and get that pre-qualification process started. So after they've chosen a lender and now they're pre-qualified, we know what their price range is. Next step would be to set up that home search. Okay, where do they want to be? What square footage? How many beds? How many baths? What's the criteria? Set up that search. And while we're setting up that search, this is very important, you want to set expectations up front about what is involved with the search. So what I mean by that is, look, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, we should be finding your home within the first 5 to 10 homes that we look at, okay? And if we missed it after 10 homes, then we're doing something wrong. So set expectations up front. Use whatever numbers you want to use first, but you want to do it up front so that way you're not showing 20, 30 homes because no expectations were set up front. So make sure you do that. So after we find them that dream home, the next step would be to schedule the inspection. So depending on how you write up the purchase agreement, you're looking at between 7 and 10 days after acceptance to do your home inspection period. And so just like with the lenders, I like to offer out a couple options just to ensure, again, that they pick the home inspector they want to work with. So I offer out at least 2 home inspectors. The buyers can contact each one, and they ultimately will decide who they want doing the home inspection. So home inspection went good. Next step would be the lender would order the appraisal for the buyer, okay? And so after that inspection is done, the lender is going to order the appraisal. They're going to submit everything for underwriting. They're going to make sure all the title work is done, and it's going to be submitted for final review. One of the last steps that we have is we want to make sure we're always doing this is do a final walkthrough prior to closing. And you always want to do it the day of closing, okay? We want to make sure the home didn't burn down, or if you negotiated certain things to stay with the home, you want to make sure those things are there before you show up and sign all your documents. Last thing I want to encourage you guys all to incorporate with your buyers is something called an off-market program. And so what that means is if you have a buyer who wants to be in a certain area, a certain neighborhood, certain school district, offer them to find them a home that's off-market. And that means for sale by owners, expireds, withdrawals, door knocking a neighborhood, finding a home that's not for sale. But you got to keep in mind, if I'm able to do that, my commission is 4.5% or 4%, whatever it is. The point is, it should not be 3% because you're doing a lot more work and you're finding a home that is off market.